My family's smug faces froze when my sister gasped, "You're on Forbes 30 under 30. In that heartbeat, I knew they'd never seen me coming.
Hey there, welcome to today's story. How are you feeling right now? Share a thought or a quick hello in the comments before we dive in. Today's tale follows Olivia Carter as she faces a high-stakes family intervention over what everyone thinks is her failing startup. Have you ever felt underestimated by the people closest to you? Stick around to see how she turns doubt into her greatest triumph. And hey, if you're excited for more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. It really keeps me inspired to bring you fresh, powerful narratives. Thanks for being here.
I never expected a group chat message to feel like a ticking time bomb, yet there it was, flashing on my phone screen late Wednesday afternoon. Urgent family meeting. Tonight at 7 p.m. Please be on time. Margaret. Margaret Carter, my mother, had always wielded perfect grammar like a shield. Each word in that invitation dripped with the polite disappointment she perfected over decades, the calculated concern, the motherly scold wrapped in silk. I stared at the colonial-style house in the background of her profile pic and imagined her furrowing brow as she tapped send. I glanced in the rearview mirror of my beaten-up Prius, its once vibrant teal paint now dulled by city dust. The same car I'd purchased with my first seed investment because pragmatism was my North Star. Behind me, the sprawling Carter estate gleamed like a relic of old money success, a constant reminder of the Ivy League pedigree I'd left behind 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in this very driveway, I had climbed out of my sleek BMW loaner, still wearing my Mackenzie and Hawthorne partner suit. My father, Jonathan Carter, had greeted me with a half-smile that said, proud but not surprised. Today, that driveway was patrolled by my family's luxury fleet, Grace's Porsche, Caleb's Range Rover, and Margaret's pristine Lexus. The contrast stung, but I breathed in. Let them think what they wanted. As I killed the engine, a yellowing photograph fluttered down from the porch roof, landing on the windshield wiper, a snapshot of 10-year-old me beside a homemade neural network at a 5th-grade science fair, beaming with innocence. I blinked. I hadn't thought about that day in years. But tonight, it would matter. I stepped into the cavernous foyer of the Carter residence, the scent of polished wood and expensive candles washing over me like a subtle rebuke. Every inch of this house spoke of generational wealth and meticulous curation. Family portraits lined the walls, each smiling face a testament to lineage and legacy. I paused at the threshold of the great room, noticing how the afternoon light caught the crystal chandelier just so, scattering prisms across the oriental rug underfoot. It was the kind of space that broadcasted authority before you even spoke a word. Margaret Carter stood near the hearth, her posture rigid, lips pursed beneath perfectly rouged cheeks. She wore a fitted tweed jacket that must have cost more than my monthly rent. I admired her poise even as I braced for impact. Jonathan Carter, my father, sat across from her in a high-backed leather chair, legs crossed, hands steepled, his classic boardroom stance. Grace Carter lounged on the L-shaped sofa beside her husband Caleb Morgan, whose subtly smirking eyes betrayed barely concealed judgment. In the corner, Aunt Linda Harris adjusted her reading glasses, armed with a yellowed clipping from some local magazine praising my 5th-grade science triumph. She was ready to remind me of my early promise, as though childhood accolades could compensate for 2 years of bootstrapped entrepreneurship. Ethan Clark hovered by the fireplace, phone in hand, offering the occasional supportive glance. Our history went back to college hackathons and late-night coding marathons. To him, I was still ambitious, a little overly confident, but always unstoppable. He'd flown in at my request, the only ally I'd summoned. Now, I needed all the moral backup I could get. Margaret cleared her throat, the sound echoing under vaulted ceilings. Olivia, she began, voice syrupy with concern, we've noticed you've been withdrawn. No calls for holidays, no weekend visits. And this startup, 2 years and we're concerned. Have you thought about stability? Benefits? Healthcare? Her words landed like hailstones. The implication was that I'd traded security, the the warm blanket of corporate comforts for precarious day-to-day grind. I forced myself not to flinch. Instead, I took a slow survey of the room, Grace's manicured nails tapping a silent rhythm, Caleb's half-raised eyebrow, Jonathan's stern gaze appraising me like faulty machinery. I squared my shoulders. I appreciate the worry, Mom, I really do. But letting investors vet every move has its own safety net. I let that sink in before adding, I'd rather build something significant from the ground up than trade my autonomy for a paycheck. Caleb snorted softly. Ground up? Sure, but with what capital? Your clients? Your code? How much revenue have you actually generated? Aunt Linda chimed in, adjusting her spectacles. And dear, what happened to the neural network you showcased at that science fair? I've got the photo right here. She produced a faded snapshot of 10-year-old me next to a rudimentary circuit board. I hid a smile. That fair was the seed. Neuralink AI is the tree. Our latest pilot with Meridian Health generated upwards of $1.2 million in contract value last quarter. Grace's mouth fell open. Contract value? You mean you actually landed a deal? And it's financially substantial. I nodded. Meridian is just the beginning. We're preparing for a Series B that will bring us into the tens of millions in funding. Jonathan leaned forward, curiosity momentarily overtaking disapproval. Funding? With who? I clicked my tongue, feigning reluctance. Investor confidentiality prevents me from naming names, right, Ethan? Ethan grinned and gave a mock throat clear. The tension in the room shifted, crackling with unspoken surprise. Margaret exchanged a glance with Grace. I don't know what to say. Her voice wavered, the silk of her veneer fraying. That's okay, I replied evenly. I didn't expect you to. For a moment, the space seemed to shrink. The lofty ceiling and expensive furnishings felt incongruous with the raw energy of a founder who had actually done the work. In that charged silence, I realized the unspoken message. They had called this meeting to save me from failure, not realizing I was already miles ahead. My pulse quickened when my phone buzzed again, this time in my hand, not Ethan's. The notification preview read, Forbes.com, Olivia Carter named 30 under 30 innovator. Grace lunged for my phone first, fingers trembling. Her expression flickered from triumph to disbelief in an instant. I watched her scroll, her breath catching. Company valuation, $2.5 billion. The room froze. Jonathan's jaw dropped open. Margaret's wine glass trembled, droplets cascading back into the crystal as though gravity itself protested. Caleb's smirk evaporated into a slack-jawed stare. Aunt Linda's spectacles slipped down her nose, distortion prisms dancing across her widened eyes. I felt the familiar surge of vindication, but I quelled it with a calming breath. Yes, I said, voice soft but laced with steel. We just closed at a $2.5 billion valuation. Ethan chimed in, unable to resist. After tonight's bridge round, it'll be closer to $3.1 billion. He winked at me. Grace dropped the phone onto the coffee table, her composure in shreds. But how? We thought you were floundering. I thought I understood the plan. I leaned forward, hands resting lightly on my knees. You saw the Prius in the driveway and assumed I couldn't afford anything better. You heard stories of me skipping dinners and thought it was a sign of struggle. Caleb rubbed his temples, as if the numbers were a migraine. Does Neuralink actually work? Is there real revenue? I allowed myself a small, knowing smile. Yes, real revenue, real clients. We're in pilot phases with 3 major hospital networks. Our AI algorithm predicts neurological disease progression with over 95% accuracy, months before traditional diagnoses. Margaret's voice, unsteady now, quivered. Why didn't you tell us? I stood, letting the height difference underscore my truth. Because I paused, letting each syllable resonate. I needed space to build without the weight of expectations. Sometimes people only hear failure when that's what they expect. I let them underestimate me. Aunt Linda dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I'm sorry, Liv. I didn't realize. Grace's voice cracked. I'm proud of you. I guess. I folded my arms, scanning their faces, astonishment, regret, awe, and chose compassion. I didn't need applause during the climb. I only needed at the summit. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my tablet. With a few taps, I projected a slide deck across the marble mantelpiece, graphs of user retention, letters of recommendation from Stanford Medical Center, screenshots of press coverage. The room dimmed as the projector lights brightened, illuminating hard data that could not be denied. Ethan flipped to the final slide. And here's next quarter's forecast, 55% growth in subscription-based licensing. His finger traced the upward curve until it nearly sliced through the ceiling moldings. Silence followed, thick as the rose-scented candle burning in the corner. In that silence, I realized I was no longer just Olivia Carter, the daughter they worried about. I was Olivia Carter, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar AI company, and they would need to recalibrate every assumption they'd ever made. As the projector clicked off, I felt a wave of calm confidence wash over me. The intervention they'd planned to stage had become the proving ground for my accomplishments. I gathered up my tablet, replaced it in my bag, and took a moment to let the magnitude of the moment sink in. Ethan slipped me a supportive nod, our unspoken agreement. Mission accomplished. Thank you all, I said quietly, for giving me this stage. Jonathan rose slowly from his throne-like chair, clearing his throat as though stepping into a press conference. Olivia, you have our attention now. We want to understand everything. And with that invitation, I knew it was time to unveil the full master plan for Neuralink AI, the strategic partnerships, the product roadmap, and the vision that would not only reshape healthcare, but also redefine what a founder could achieve in stealth mode. I took a deep breath, ready to guide them through part 4, unveiling the master plan, where every slide, every data point, and every future projection would solidify my place not only in Forbes, but in the annals of transformative technology. I looked around the Carter living room, now transformed from a casual family intervention into an impromptu pitch theater. The soft glow of the chandelier cast elongated shadows, and I noticed how each piece of antique furniture suddenly felt like audience seating. My family sat forward in their chairs, eyes glinting with a blend of astonishment and curiosity. It was time to shift gears from defense to offense, to take them behind the curtain of Neuralink AI and reveal the blueprint I'd been fine-tuning for 2 relentless years. I reached into my bag and retrieved my tablet, tapping to connect to my private investor portal. The built-in projector pulsed to life, and crisp slides unfurled across the marble mantelpiece. The title screen read, in minimalist Helvetica, Neuralink AI, Adaptive Neural Forecasting for Clinical Excellence. Let me show you why we've been in stealth mode, I began, voice measured but confident. Our core product is an adaptive learning algorithm that ingests longitudinal patient data, MRI scans, genetic markers, cognitive assessments, and uses reinforced neural network pathways to predict disease progression, particularly in neurodegenerative conditions, up to 18 months in advance. Margaret's eyes narrowed. What does that actually mean for patients? I clicked to the next slide, a flowchart illustrating data acquisition, pre-processing, algorithmic training, and output integration with electronic health records. Imagine a patient with mild cognitive impairment. Under traditional protocols, they might not receive intensive treatment until symptoms become pronounced, often when intervention windows have narrowed. Neuralink AI flags at-risk patients early, enabling clinicians to administer neuroprotective therapies proactively. Caleb leaned forward. Okay, that's noble. But how do you monetize it? A single tap revealed a bar graph, Revenue streams broken into subscription licensing fees for hospital networks, per-patient analytic surcharges, and revenue-sharing agreements with pharmaceutical partners for outcome-based trials. We operate on a tiered model. Large hospital systems pay an annual licensing fee starting at $250,000. Clinical research partners, pharma companies conducting trials, pay per-usage fees for data analytics and predictive cohort segmentation. That revenue has grown 45% quarter-over-quarter. I swiped to reveal client logos: Stanford Medical Center, Meridian Health Systems, the Mayo Clinic, and a consortium of 5 European neurology institutes currently piloting our platform. Each logo appeared like a badge of validation. Jonathan cleared his throat. And adoption rates? Pace setters, I said with a grin. In pilot studies, our partners reported a 30% improvement in early intervention enrollment. That correlates to both better patient outcomes and reduced long-term treatment costs, an argument that CFOs and hospital administrators can't ignore. Aunt Linda raised her hand, her scholarly curiosity piqued. What about data security and compliance? I nodded, toggling to our compliance slide: HIPAA-certified encryption protocols, GDPR-compatible data residency options, SOC 2 Type 2 audits, and end-to-end anonymization at the research stage. Beneath each bullet point, small checkmark icons denoted third-party audit certifications. Medical data is sacred. We treat it as such. At that moment, a soft chime announced an incoming FaceTime call. I hit accept, and on the screen appeared Sarah Jenkins, my lead venture partner at Horizon Capital, flanked by 2 colleagues. The video feed buzzed with professional polish. Olivia, forgive the interruption, her voice crackled through the speaker, but our board is eager to review your updated projections. We've scheduled a presentation tomorrow at 10 a.m. She clicked through her own slide deck overlay, a cumulative $150 million in Series B commitments tentatively approved, an invitation to join Global HealthX Summit, and preliminary talks with the World Health Organization for scalable deployment in emerging markets. Grace leaned so close her Chanel jacket brushed the crystal glass on the coffee table. Emerging markets, she whispered to Caleb. Smart move, Ethan muttered. Diversify risk and expand impact. I returned my gaze to Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. We'll be ready. With a tap, the feed ended, leaving behind an electric buzz. Margaret's voice trembled, equal parts pride and disbelief. Olivia, I had no idea. I set the tablet down and walked through the room, eye contact deliberate. 2 years ago, I told you I was passionate about this project. Passion is the foundation. Strategic execution built the house. Caleb's posture straightened. I may have underestimated you. I offered a genuine smile. That's okay. Underestimation can be a competitive advantage. Jonathan rose, his face softer than I'd ever seen. Your mother and I, well, perhaps we judged too soon. The moment crackled with possibility. They weren't just observers now, they were witnesses to a vision that transcended family expectations. And as I closed my presentation, I knew I'd done more than defend my choices. I had invited them to believe in my mission. That night, after the Carter household had retreated to hushed conversations and tentative congratulations, I found myself alone in the adjoining library, bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes on economics, philosophy, and history. Jonathan quietly entered, placing Margaret's silk scarf gently on a side table. He stood by the bay window, gaze drifting over the manicured gardens below. Olivia, he began, voice low, I've been thinking about that 5th grade science fair photo you carried with you. He held up the ghost white snapshot, now framed in my hallway. I remember missing your awards ceremony because of a board meeting. I inhaled, recognizing the vulnerability in his tone. I never resented you for that. That neural network project was ahead of its time, but you were doing what you thought was best. He turned, eyes glistening. I was blind. I thought success meant following the well-worn path. You showed me success can be redefined. He paused, hesitation flickering. I want to understand Neuralink, truly understand, not as my daughter's hobby, but as the force it is. I felt an unexpected warmth. I'd like that. If you're willing to learn. Jonathan smiled, a genuine curve rather than a practiced smirk. Teach me. Over the next hour, I led him through the network models scrawled on whiteboards, explaining loss functions, learning rates, and quantum-enhanced processing modules. He asked thoughtful questions about ethical AI, bias mitigation, and the social implications of predictive healthcare, areas he'd never explored in corporate consulting. Each query was a bridge spanning our divide. When our impromptu tutorial concluded, he lingered by the final whiteboard. So this, he traced a hand over our global deployment map. This is your legacy. I nodded, emotions welling. I want my legacy to be one of empowerment, helping people before they fall, giving them choices they wouldn't have otherwise. He reached forward, placing the framed photo on a nearby shelf. We should celebrate this properly. The room softened as we walked back to the main hall, where Margaret and Grace waited. Margaret's eyes were red-rimmed, but her smile was sincere. Grace offered a tentative embrace. I'm proud of you, Liv, she whispered. Margaret cleared her throat. We want to host a family dinner at Neuralink headquarters next Thursday. I considered the invitation. There would be no highfalutin interventions this time, just a genuine chance for them to see my world on its own merits. It would be my honor, I replied. In the weeks that followed, the Carters immersed themselves in Neuralink's universe. Margaret enrolled in an online coding bootcamp. She told me she wanted to understand Python's syntax. Grace updated her LinkedIn profile with a heartfelt post celebrating her sister's achievements. Even Caleb attended a company town hall session, slipping quietly into the back row to listen. Our family dinner at the sleek glass tower overlooking the city skyline was a far cry from the opening scene in the living room. No nervous tension, just shared laughter over harvest-style carpaccio and discussions on the ethics of AI. When the evening wound down, Jonathan raised his glass. To new beginnings, he toasted, eyes alight. To boundaries. Outside.
Hey everyone, what resonated with you most in Olivia's journey? Drop your thoughts, feelings, or any insights in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. And if you enjoyed this story, show some love with a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. Thank you for listening all the way through.